Today we are pleased to meet with Ramanie Kunanayagam, a Sri Lankan Australian who was appointed to the World Bank Inspection Panel on December 16, 2018. She brought to the panel 3 decades of experience across diverse geopolitical and multicultural environments in both the private and public sectors. On January 1st, 2022, Ramanie became the inspection panel chair, a role she held until December 15th, 2023. Subsequently, she continued to serve as a member of the panel, but will complete her service with the body on April 7, 2024. In this exit interview, Ramanie shares some insights into her work with the panel, particularly during her 2-year period as chair.
Hello, my name is Ramanie Kunanayagam, and I've just completed my term as a panel member on the inspection panel, where I served from the end of 2018 until the beginning of 2024. 2 years of which I was the chair of the inspection panel. When I think about my tenure on the inspection panel, there are many things that come to mind, but I think most importantly, I saw myself as a custodian of the first citizen-driven accountability mechanism. And therefore, I felt a huge sense of obligation to ensure that I fulfill the mandate of the inspection panel. What was that mandate? That mandate actually served 2 purposes. One, and very importantly, we were there as an access for justice mechanism to communities who believed they were harmed or negatively impacted by World Bank projects, and they could come to the panel where their voices would be heard at the highest level of decision making of the bank, and that is the board. And that was my second obligation, or that was my equivalent obligation, was reporting to the board and ensuring that the right decisions were made for the right reasons to ensure that those least empowered in the world would be heard and would get remedy and mitigation for harms that they may have experienced, and which the panel determined through its very rigorous process of investigation and compliance.
You've had a long career managing environmental and social risks in the natural resources sector involving large infrastructure projects. What do you see as the inherent differences between the private and public sector approaches to managing environmental and social risks and accountability?
As you pointed out, Bart, I've had a very long career in the private sector, working for some of the biggest companies in the world, 2 FTSE 10 companies, having to design, implement, develop policy, strategize on management of environmental and social risks. So if you like, I've worked on the other side of the fence, and I know exactly what's involved in terms of developing mega infrastructure projects in terms of their environmental and social management. Now I'm on the other side of the fence, where I have to assess essentially compliance. I'd like to think that I brought to the panel some pragmatism in terms of how we look at these risks, and understanding of some of the operational challenges, and the ability to really focus on what some of the strategic issues and risks are, without compromising on the rigor and integrity of the panel's work. But in terms of the fundamental differences between the private and public sectors, in the private sector, we use the term social license to operate. And what does this mean? This means that it doesn't matter if a company has obtained all its necessary licenses, permits, clearances, certifications. The company needs the support of its broader community and the public in order to be able to operate. And without that support, a company will not be able to operate. This, I find, is different in the public sector, where the project implementers are the government or the borrowers in the case of the World Bank. As you know, governments are all powerful and they have multiple roles. So the concept of a social license to operate doesn't have the same significance in the public sector as it does in the private sector. The other difference is, in the World Bank context, the borrowers are also shareholders of the World Bank. The World Bank has something like 188 or 189 countries. Some of them are borrower countries and some of them are donor countries. As a shareholder of the bank, all shareholder representatives have to uphold the bank policies, standards, processes, commitments. But in the case of the panel, if the panel was investigating a project in a particular country, even though the panel's mandate is to investigate the bank and the bank's commitments in terms of ensuring its policies and standards are followed, it becomes very sensitive to the government. And this creates for quite a complex environment in terms of our stakeholder relations.
5 years have passed since you became an inspection panel member. What have been the greatest internal and external challenges you've experienced during your time with the panel?
So but in my second year as a panel member, the COVID pandemic hit, and that obviously created some very specific external challenges. There was a global shutdown; we could not travel. But I'm really proud to say that the panel continued to work as it always did. It did not delay on its work. We had to find innovative and creative ways of working, which we did. I'm also really pleased to say that when travel just started to open up, we were one of the first units in the or teams in the bank to travel. I led that mission to Togo, and I think this demonstrates our commitment to reaching out to communities and ensuring that we visit communities that have raised issues with the panel. The other external risk we faced is the very high number of percentage of allegations of retaliation and fear of intimidation that requesters state when they submit a complaint to us. And this obviously is a deterring factor to people being able to come to the panel when they have issues. And we've had to deal with this extremely sensitively from multiple perspectives. Internally, when I took on the role of the chair, it was when the accountability mechanism that was set up by the bank following the 2020 reforms of that looked at additional tools, if you like, in terms of accountability, was being put in place. So I had to lead from the inspection panel side what the operationalization of this new accountability mechanism meant in terms of its implications to the inspection panel. And this obviously, or not obviously, but this has proved to be challenging and very time consuming from my perspective.
The World Bank has embraced a broader and more ambitious vision, which includes addressing challenges such as climate change, global health risks, and disaster risk management, with the aim of creating a world free of poverty on a livable planet. In the context of this new vision, what role do you see for accountability?
Well, I see the role of accountability to be as strong as ever, or maybe even stronger, because I'm sure you've read and heard about becoming a bigger and better bank. A better bank also has to be a more accountable bank. And a bigger bank, a bank that increases its and expands its portfolio, that increases its financing significantly, has to also be more accountable for what it's purporting to deliver. So in both those contexts, I see a very strong role for accountability and a high need for strong and independent accountability. I also believe, in terms of a more climate-friendly bank, cl- investments in climate or climate-friendly projects could mean investments in infrastructure. And green infrastructure can bring with it the same challenges that any infrastructure project can bring. So just because a project is green, it doesn't mean that it may not cause resettlement or displacement. It may not involve land take. It could be, you could have a geothermal plant, for example, being developed in an area habitated by indigenous people. So these issues have to be dealt with. And I think it's very important that environment and social issues are not regarded as a trade-off or one against the other. So a green project cannot come at a social cost. And that in itself will lead to complaints to the panel, and we would have to look at it the same way we've looked at any other infrastructure project.
To bring this interview to a close, can you share 2 accomplishments about which you are particularly proud?
So when I took on the mantle of chair of the inspection panel, I committed to the board that I would ensure that the panel continue to deliver to the high standards that it's always been known for. And I am really proud to say that despite numerous challenges that we have delivered, and we have not compromised on the quality of our investigation reports or of our work, the rigor that's needed in our work, and the integrity. But secondly, I would like to think that I have upheld the independence of the inspection panel, which I think it's vital to the panel's existence, its survival, and its credibility. We commemorated 30 years of the inspection panel under my tenure as chair, and we had a whole range of events that were attended to by board members, by World Bank management, by civil society, academics, requesters, many different groups who all upheld the importance of the independence of the panel. And I think that the panel's independence cannot be assumed or cannot be taken for granted. It is something that needs to be protected and something that needs to be advocated. And with the review now of the new accountability mechanism, I hope to see a stronger inspection panel emerge out of that process. Thank you.
Ramanie, thank you for sharing these insights from your years of dedicated service to the inspection panel.